Here with the latest, MS Now senior national security reporter David Rohde, Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Steph Twitty. He served as the former Deputy Commander of the U.S. European Command. David, to you first. The president's latest threat is raising a lot of concerns and alarms, and it comes amid these strikes on Kharg Island. And Israel says it struck 8 bridges. How is this all impacting the last-minute negotiations?
I've talked to 2 diplomats from the Persian Gulf just now, and they tell me the chances are very low at this point for an agreement before President Trump's 8 p.m. deadline tonight. One of them said, put the chances at 0. And they said that one sort of indicator of this, the perception is from the region, is Vice President J.D. Vance's travel to Hungary today. President Trump said yesterday and has said many times that Vance is part of the negotiating team that's leading the effort with the Iranians to try to strike a deal. That includes also Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. But the fact that Vance is traveling overseas today is seen as a sign that there's they're not close to a deal. There's other reasons that they think they're not close to a deal. They don't want to get into details, but that's the latest update that I have.
So again, with hours to go, no deal appears to be in sight. Joel, have you ever seen anything like the threat that we saw this morning, especially with critical talks underway?
Laura, no, not in American history have we seen a president essentially threaten nuclear war. And we have to be clear that the president of the United States has unilateral sole authority to make those decisions. So I view this as sort of the throw the spaghetti at the wall phase of our diplomacy. The president is on his own. He's putting out all different ideas. He's playing bad cop. The problem is there's no good cop right now in the diplomacy. Where is NATO on the diplomacy? Where are our Arab allies on the diplomacy? Where is Congress on pushing for diplomacy? We don't hear enough out of them. So the president's acting in his own way. He's doing things, saying things that are very damaging to our credibility as a country, and he clearly doesn't have a diplomatic off-ramp to claim victory and get gains out of this war that he wants, and that's why we're in this moment we're in right now.
I mean, for that matter, where is the nation's top diplomat, Secretary of State Marco Rubio? Right. And there are so many different people that the president appears to be getting advice from. But, General, on top of this threat this morning, where the president was talking about annihilating an entire civilization, I also want to play for you some of what Trump has said during yesterday's press conference when he was asked about potential civilian targets. Take a listen.
Are there certain kinds of civilian targets, though? I'm thinking schools
I don't want to tell you that. I don't want to tell you that. We have a plan because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to. We're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And after that, they're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah. Stone Ages.
General Twitty, back in November, 6 Democratic lawmakers with military and intelligence backgrounds urged service members to refuse illegal orders. With what we're hearing from the president, could all of that rise to this level of service members needing to refuse an illegal order?
Yeah, as you know, we're in a difficult situation right now, and this is interesting. I served in the Army 40 years, and I have not been in a predicament like this, or was not in a predicament like this. So this will be interesting to see where we go here. I'm sure that the lawyers out there from the National Security Council all the way down to the unit level are trying to tie the infrastructure, the bridges, the power facilities, everything, try and tie that to military operations inside Iran. In other words, if Iran uses the bridges for troop movement, then it's a legitimate target. There are legitimate targets out there that could be bridges and electricity facilities water plants, and so forth. But the way I'm hearing this play out, we're talking about across the entire country, and I'm not so sure that all those facilities would be legal targets.
Joel, to the general's point, though, when it comes to a National Security Council or people advising the president, there is no normal infrastructure that used to exist in prior administrations. And we have no indication that Congress or any international body is going to hold the president accountable if he does strike civilian infrastructure. There's this new report in the Wall Street Journal detailing the frustrations other nations have with what they're calling an erratic United States. So what kind of position does this put our allies in?
Yeah, Laura, look, there is no accountability mechanism right now. There is one, it's called the U.S. Congress. There is one called the elections. But the timeline for those, the clock doesn't run at the same time as this war. So for our allies, they're very concerned and frustrated. They need to step in. Quite frankly, tomorrow, for example, Secretary General Rutte of NATO, he's coming to Washington. He needs to be coming to Washington with the full backing of the NATO allies and present a plan to the president on how to deal with the problems that Iran is created in the region, where he can say, we'll help you with these. We need a diplomatic off-ramp. We need to end this war. Absent that, there's no formal legal mechanism that's going to somehow force the president into a different policy. This is where our allies need to show that they are allies to the American people, not just the American military when they need our help.
It's stunning that there seems to be nothing that can potentially stop this, David. In the midst of all of this, the Iranian regime has called for human chains around power plants. The Iranian president claims he and 14 million other people have offered to sacrifice their lives in this war. What does this tell you about the mindset of the regime?
I think it shows the regimes, the president himself, that they are determined to resist this. They're trying to sort of out-bluff Trump's bluffing. The real concern here is just that the president of the United States, no president I've known has ever threatened to, destroy an entire civilization. And that's what's so unusual about this. And I agree with General Twitty. The American military is being put in a terrible position. There are lawyers who have to approve each of these strikes. My fear is they present the president with a list, close to 8 o'clock tonight, and he's like, no, I want more targets. So it's just so unprecedented and unusual. And then lastly, this strategy of targeting bridges and power plants, I don't know who told the president this, but even if he carries out these strikes, the Iranian regime is not going to collapse. The key here is opening up the Strait of Hormuz. That is the biggest leverage point. And what Joel was saying, there should be an international effort. This is what past presidents have done, to create a coalition. Europe, Japan and Korea, all the world needs that international waterway to be open. What Iran is doing by firing on these tankers is against international law, and there should be a way. A better tactic would be to create an international effort. The Gulf states will participate in it as well, to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and isolate this regime in Iran. Blowing up, these power plants and bridges is actually going to create sympathy for the regime in Iran and is not going to cause them to collapse.
General, as we mentioned, we're now less than 9 hours away from the president's deadline. So what kind of plans is the Pentagon likely making? What kind of scenarios are you watching for? And do you think that the president is actually listening to the military lawyers that David was just referring to?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say we're at a point where, and I have opposed this since the beginning of the war, but when it comes to options, there are more options out there than just blowing up plants and so forth. I would much rather see U.S. ground troops introduced into this fight to be able to go in, fight, retain land, destroy the IRGC and other tasks than to see us kill innocent civilians. And so also, we've already talked about this, the diplomacy. There's been very little diplomacy. There's been very little of other countries getting involved to try to mediate and move things forward here. So there's so many other options that we have not exercised before going in to do something of this nature. And on your question on whether, go ahead.
Go ahead, General.
Yeah, on your question on whether or not this is going to be executed or not, I don't know. We'll see. it is my hope that the generals stand forward and say, look, if we're going after civilian targets, then, put your stars on the line, because the last thing you want to do is live the rest of your life knowing that you killed innocent civilians. We already do that when we kill innocent civilians and we don't mean to. And that carries very heavily on us throughout the rest of our lives. And I can't imagine for our military to go in and kill innocent civilians knowing that that's what they're doing. And so hopefully cooler heads will prevail here, and we'll think through this and look at the other options.
If cooler heads don't prevail, Joel, I just want to go back to the accountability question for this last moment, because the war is changing some of the policies that our allies are implementing. The war is not popular in a number of their countries, and so they're responding to that because their populations, their voters don't necessarily support this. When it comes to Spain, they've already closed their airspace to U.S. aircraft involved in the Iran war. So what do you see as the long-term impact here when it comes to our allies?
Well, Laura, America is safer and stronger when we have our allies. And we've been safe since 1945, generally speaking, because of those alliances, in particular with NATO. Now, what the president is doing is executing a war separate from those allies. He's going it alone, generally speaking, as well, along with Israel, of course. But by going it alone, he is choosing a path, and that path is going to be clear for the other countries that we've been depending on for decades. And they're going to say, if you want to go it alone, you are alone. And I think that's very dangerous for our overall security.